Shalom everybody. Give me a second while I sort my windows out. First we're going to start with a little bit of humour. Just a little bit of humour. I started a petition to have Kathleen Kennedy be made head of NASA. I think most of you probably don't know this, but Star Wars, you know, the films, well, they've continued to make more films and TV shows and whatnot. And the head of Lucasfilm is Kathleen Kennedy. If you've kept up with some of the fiasco that's been going on with the whole Star Wars franchise, you'll see that Kathleen Kennedy is the most inept head of any large organization there's ever been. She's completely ruining the whole thing. So I thought it'd be a good idea to force NASA to make her be the head of NASA. You know, that way she'd ruin NASA. So here's the petition. It's in the chat if you guys want to go and sign. I started it. It's got 8 signatures. So I'm going to read you what the petition says. And bear in mind, it's a joke, okay? That's all it is. But I think it'd be hilarious if it turned out that, you know, that they did, and then NASA just started fouling up even more than they already do. So, make Kathleen Kennedy head of NASA. I'm going to read this, and then I'll go into some interesting stuff, and then the medical expert stuff, which is really interesting. Okay, so here we go. There has never been a female head of NASA, and it's about time this changed. This petition is to urge Steve Jurczyk, NASA's acting administrator, to step down and make way for Kathleen Kennedy, current president of Lucasfilm Limited, producers of the Star Wars movies, teleseries, books, comics, toys, etc. This empowering move will show women all around the world that they can indeed head the biggest organizations and finally smash that glass ceiling. See what I did there? Kathleen Kennedy would be a great asset for NASA, as her vision, people skills, diplomacy and activism is like no others, and this would no doubt promote NASA beyond its current limits. With Kathleen Kennedy at NASA's helm, the sky really is the limit, or better said, the stars. With her far-sighted view of the future, it's unimaginable how this magnificent leader's skills will expand the realms of the imagination. See what I did there with doublethink? Kathleen Kennedy's proven track record, decades of experience in the complex world of movie making with all its logistics entailed, and heading the most successful franchise ever, Star Wars, far surpasses that of an engineer like Steve Jurczyk. No disrespect to engineers. This makes her far more qualified to run NASA than anybody else. Frankly, not hiring Kathleen Kennedy as head of NASA is an insult to all women, and as such, an absolute outrage. Please sign the petition and spread it worldwide. Let's right this injustice. So there you go. Please sign the petition and share it. Let's see what happens. Anyway, thought I'd share that because it's kind of funny. Now we're going to look at just an interesting thing that I found, which is this. I'm leaving the title at the bottom of the screen in case you want to go and look for it yourselves afterwards. It's a plasma vortex, but I saw this and I thought, ooh, that's interesting. I rewound and found the little frame where this was shown. This is part of a stream. You know, I just looked for this frame. I just saw it. I thought, oh, that's interesting. It reminds me a little bit of this. See how these are bunched together? So, bunched together. Oh, and then big space between. Let's have a look. Big space between. And see distortion over here. See distortion? Let's have a look. Distortion! Good heavens. What an interesting coincidence. And that's all I'm saying. It is a coincidence, that's all. In case you're interested, this map is in my Patreon. You can just go there and right-click, copy image and save it to your computer. Okay, you don't have to give me anything. It's just there. I started my Patreon so I could share things with people without them having to give me anything or donate, as a secure place that's easier to share with more people than Google Drive, which is more monitored and controlled. And also, this is much harder to hack. Patreon is much harder to hack than Google Drive. So, it's there. It's just, play with it. Knock yourselves out, drawing more latitudes, if you like. These are the longitudes for the equinox period. Okay? I have other maps. I think I have some for the June solstice and the December solstice. But anyway, just knock yourselves out. So there you go. Now, filaments. Let's look at some filaments. Oh wait, before we do, let's look at filaments in this way. Water droplets evaporating in an iron trap. Oh, volume off. So this is likely to get a stroke on computer. Oh, look at those. Look at those tiny little filaments. Now, for anybody interested, what's happening here is, I hope you're all familiar with the lamp that has a stream of water pouring, dropping from the top of the lamp to the bottom of the lamp, and the light of the lamp strobes in such a way that it makes it look like there are drops falling in slow motion or even rising in slow motion. And that's caused by an effect that's related to the frame rate of our vision, so how the filaments that reach our eyes convey information, paired up with the flashing of the light. All lights flash very quickly. With the flashing of the light, that causes what is a stream of water to appear like individual drops. Well, what we're seeing here is, yes, I can use my cursor. What we're seeing here is tiny droplets of water that are actually moving from here to here very quickly, because they're in filaments that are pushing up and back down very rapidly, and they show like little bars. Okay, so I'll play it until they do this, which is they elongate along filaments. You see that what I just described, let me go back. What I just described with the droplets oscillating back and forth within the filament is true. There is a filament here along which this one is oscillating back and forth. All of these are in filaments. We only see the portion of the filament that the ion beam is allowing us to see. When these get to a point that they get too narrow, too small, they spread out along the length of the filament, as you just saw. So watch again. And very nice. Watch this video, water droplets evaporating in an iron trap. Okay, now let's look at some more filaments. Laser show in a soap bubble. Thank you very much. Donald, thank you very much. Sorry, I have a sniffle. Oh, could it be corona? Look at the laser coming in here, hitting this bubble and splitting into, well, lots of filaments. This is slow motion. Look at all those filaments. And the scientists are studying, going, mathematically, what must be happening on the surface, this is happening, and therefore this is happening. It's like, oh, really? Have you accounted for the actual static charge and what filaments, the static charge over this bubble, are part of, and where those filaments go? Have you taken that into account? Or have you forgotten the fact that everything that exists emits electromagnetic arrays? I use the word array instead of field because the word field is meaningless. So, we're going to see some more filaments now, and then I will point something out that I thought was just so interesting. I hope everybody's okay. I can't go into the chat. Sorry, folks. And those aren't filaments just on the surface of the bubble. They are inside the bubble. Okay, so now let's go back. Excuse me. So what we have here, a bubble, some reflection, and a laser. We're going to go back. We'll look at the laser again from a different angle like we saw earlier. See? There. Here we have the bubble, the filament, and the laser. Let's play again. Changes angles. They show the laser from a different angle. And I'm going to point something out here, like I pointed out with the double slit experiment, that for some reason, even very intelligent folks haven't noticed. Like, dude, don't you have eyes? Don't you say to yourself, let me see what's going on? And then see. So here, folks, what's happening here is this reflection of the bubble is reflecting in the laser. You can see it right here. Okay, you have the reflection here is here, and the reflection here is there. Did you know lasers could reflect light? No. Is there a physics explanation for this? No. Oh, that's interesting. Do they discuss that in this video? No, not whatsoever. It's as if they haven't noticed this. This isn't a wet thread with a couple of droplets. This is a laser beam with a couple of droplets. They're not actual droplets. They're the information that is static. The light that is bouncing off the bubble is not really bouncing off the surface of the bubble. It's bouncing off the static charge on the surface of the bubble, much like a rainbow is bouncing off the static charge in the sky. It's not actually refracting through light. We'd have to be on the other side of the rainbow to see it in the explanation of physics, which is light comes in, goes through, is diffracted, and then we see the banding. Well, we're not. What the hell? There's no observer. It doesn't hit like a mirror and bounce back. You know, the sun's behind you, it's hitting a surface and bouncing back to you. So this here, like with a double slit experiment, where nobody discusses the horizontal banding, not the banding like floors in a skyscraper, you know, different layers that rise up, that are horizontal banding, that are up in steps. Nobody discusses that, as if it didn't happen. It's there for anyone to see. I discussed it in the Book of the Sun. Anybody can go and see it. But they don't discuss it, just like they don't discuss the fact that this laser beam is reflecting the information from here. You're seeing it, aren't you? Just there. Okay, so that was that. Now let's move on to the medical professionals, the medical experts. So let's, headaches are quite common. Medical experts should know a thing or two about headaches. So what causes a headache? I just highlighted that so I can show you where I'm looking. This is the Johns Hopkins Medical Institution. Let's see what they say about headaches. They say lots of stuff and nothing, okay? Headache, pain in the head. They might as well just say that and be done with it. So, what causes a headache? Headaches are classified as primary or secondary. Okay, I don't know why that's there because we're asking what causes headaches. Okay, so a primary headache means the headache itself is the main medical problem although other factors such as muscle tension or exposure to certain foods may be identified. Okay, you're supposed to be answering the question, what causes a headache? Okay, so that didn't answer what causes a headache. And then it says other contributing factors including medicines, dehydration, or hormone changes. What? Other contributing factors? You haven't explained what causes. You know, you might as well said having a head is what causes a headache. You know, if you didn't have a head, you wouldn't have a headache. And then there's a secondary headache. It's related to an underlying medical condition. An example of this would be a headache due to neck injury, eye problems, jaw, teeth, or sinus infection. Okay, what causes a headache? The answer is, if you read through all of this, they don't know. We don't know what causes a headache. That's right. These guys, they don't know what causes a headache. You know, in the brain, there's no, even though it's the hub for the central nervous system, there's no pain sensors in the brain. But how can the brain hurt then? Well, it just does. Now, the reason I showed you that, these are the same guys, Johns Hopkins, okay? Let's look at this interesting publication. See, these are medical experts. Our publications keep professionals working across the public, private and academic sectors informed on the most important developments and issues in health security and biosecurity. They don't know what causes a headache, but no, they tell other people stuff. Find an article or report by keywords. Or, what's this? The SPARS Pandemic 2025 to 2028, a futuristic scenario to facilitate medical countermeasure communication. Published March 5th, 2020. Thank you to Rosie and Charlie for this. Interesting. Here it just gives you the abstract. Okay, so let's go and look at the actual thing. Oh, it's very good. I'm going to paste a link in the chat as we speak, okay? Where am I live streaming here? Okay. There you go. There's the link. Let's have a look-see. The SPARS Pandemic 2025 to 2028, a futuristic scenario to facilitate medical countermeasure communication. We'll read through some of it, okay? These are the people involved, okay? Department of Anthropology, Texas State University, Columbia University, okay? Johns Hopkins, the guys that don't know what a headache is. Abstract. Effective communication about medical countermeasures, including drugs, devices, and biologics, is often critical in emergency situations. Such communication, however, does not just happen. It must be planned and prepared for. One mechanism to develop communication strategies is through the use of prospective scenarios, which allow readers the opportunity to rehearse responses while also weighing the implications of their actions. This article describes the developments of such a scenario. The SPARS Pandemic 2025 to 2028. Steps in this process include deciding on a time frame, identifying likely critical uncertainties, and then using this framework to construct a storyline covering both the response and recovery phases of a fictional emergency event. Lessons learned from the scenario development and how the scenario can be used to improve communications are also discussed. Wonderful. So let's go ahead. Let's, medical countermeasures, including drugs, devices, and biologics, e.g., vaccines, often play critical roles in curtailing the impacts of natural disease outbreaks as well as chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear. Really? I didn't know they had vaccines for radiological or nuclear incidents, but never mind that. It's not common for members of the public, however, to misuse or hesitate to take recommended MCM, new and unfamiliar technology. An accelerated regulatory approval process or discordant expert views may heighten perceived risk, leading to public aversion to the countermeasure and or diminish public trust in MCM regulators or recommenders. In other cases, strong feelings of vulnerability in an emergency situation may prompt persons to demand unnecessary medical stuff, protest their lack of access to medical stuff with limited availability, and or use an excessive amount of prescribed medical stuff. In still other situations, certain social groups may have limited access to medical stuff because some institutions are still in the process of learning how culture, race, language, and citizenship status produce barriers to health information sharing. To mitigate all of these issues and ensure proper and timely use of medical things, good communication is key. Wonderful. From 2014 to 2016, the Centre for Health Security undertook a research project to catalogue medical stuff communication dilemmas. Let's move ahead. I'm just going to... Benefits and scenario simulation preparing disaster and epidemics. The forward-looking SPAR scenario is a tool meant to prompt readers to imagine the dynamic and oftentimes conflicted circumstances in which medical stuff emergency communication takes place. By engaging readers with a rigorous, simulated health emergency, the scenario provides opportunities for readers to mentally rehearse responses while also weighing the implications of their actions. Yeah, it kind of said that at the beginning. Apart from testing out responses to foreseeable events, the scenario also provides readers opportunities to consider potential measures in today's environment that might avert comparable problems or classes of problems in the future. That is, consider how to create a preferred future. Okay. Let's jump ahead. Let's look for interesting stuff in this. What looks like the kind of thing that would be handed out in a seminar at college. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a good little paragraph. Methods. To develop the SPAR scenario, a project team with expertise in a variety of areas, including epidemiology, public health preparedness, risk communication, and the biological and social sciences, was assembled. Utilizing the... Gene, you'll like this. Utilizing, which is another word for using, okay? So, using these diverse perspectives, the team used a combination of the inductive and deductive heuristics delineated by Ogilvy and Schwartz to develop the scenario premise. This process began with selecting the time frame for the scenario, the years 2025 to 2028. These dates, which were 10 to 13 years in the future at the time, were chosen to provide a timeline that allowed the development of future possibilities, but was not so far in the future as to make the scenario become a work of science fiction. If they made it maybe 5 years later, it would have been science fiction, or maybe 10 years. It's science fiction, folks. But, they say, let's pretend it wasn't very far in the future, let's pretend it was closer to the present. Then it's not science fiction. After the time frame was established, the project team turned to the focal question: what emergency communication issues around medical stuff are most likely to exist 10 years from now. So let's look at some of the, when you're at college and you're handed at college, high school, okay, for the Americans, when you're in high school, you're handed out an assignment, like you're going to work in a group. You're going to have one of those guys that does no work whatsoever, but he's going to get some of the credit that the workers in the group are going to earn. Yeah, that's right. That's what you're going to do. You're going to work as a team. So let's look at this. Figure 1. That, remember, folks, this comes from the guys who don't really know what causes a headache. Okay? What causes a headache? Don't know. They tell you there's 2 different kinds of headaches. Headaches that are the big problem, and then headaches where there's something else, and then also a headache. All right, okay, I thought you were supposed to be answering the question, what causes a headache? Well, no. Stuff, things, and then pain in the head. So that's who's written what I'm reading, okay? So, the scenario generation process adapted from Ogilvy and Schwartz. Great. Number 1, identify focal issue and time frame. Single out a key decision or a strategic uncertainty that has long-range consequences important to the organization. Have you got that, Sarah? Yes, I've got that. Okay. 2, brainstorm a list of key drivers. Ooh, I'll take charge of this one. Let's see. Consider notable forces shaping and influencing the focal issue: social, technological, economic, natural, political. Number 3, sort drivers into predetermined trends and critical uncertainties. Distinguish inevitable trends that will play out the same no matter what versus important trend whose impact are unsure. Great. Number 4, select top 2 critical uncertainties and build the 2x2 scenario matrix. Ooh, a matrix. Reduce each critical uncertainty to an axis with polar cases at each extremity. Overlay the 2 axes and produce 4 futures to explore. Number 5, select one of the 4 futures and elaborate on a complete storyline. Well, they forgot to put it here, but it's okay, they've put it later on. Deepen the plot through systems thinking. Think of critical events, then delve into underlying patterns and structures that these events signal. Use diagrams to see how forces interact. Oh, I'm good at drawing, I'll draw. Tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end. Capture time and causality dimensions. First this, then that. For the thickos who don't understand what causality means. Generate a series of headlines. Generate a series of headlines describing events over the course of the scenario. Oh, things are getting worse. Plebs, the government's telling you things are getting worse. Everything looks perfectly fine, but the government's telling you things are looking worse. Create characters. Personify the magnitude and direction of change by using real or iconic figures like Tom Hanks. Employ standard plot lines. Build on common narratives like winners and losers and David and Goliath. Number 6, refine the plot through an iteration process of reflection, research, and revision. Things are getting better because. 7, explore the strategic implications of the scenario. Return to initial focal issue to determine gaps, vulnerabilities, opinions facing the organization. Okay, so very interesting. Oh, look, figure 2. Final scenario framework. 4 possible futures in which the sparse pandemic unfolds. See, that was here where they didn't actually say what happened. It was number 5, but they forgot. They thought it was number 4, but never mind. Figure 2. Final scenario for framework. 4 possible futures in which the sparse pandemic unfolds. So, unbridled access and openness to information technology, including social media, versus erratic, unequal access to information technology, including social media. And then on the extremes, to the left and right, we have isolated communities, social fragmentation. On the other side, diverse but integrated communities, melting pot. And we have, leaning towards the isolated communities and social fragmentation, echo chamber, solitary confinement. Oh, that's the one the government chose. And on the other side, UN Security Council, for whatever, and Shangri-La. Okay, now we have a breakdown. And this is where I'm gonna quit. I just skim some of the rest. Now we're going to look into the 4 headings here. Okay, so the echo chamber, the UN security. See, look, echo chamber, solitary confinement. Okay, I want you to pay attention to Shangri-La. Okay, Shangri-La. Okay, so echo chamber, a technologically savvy, plugged in, but fragmented society in which groups that hold diverse worldviews consume information that continues to validate their own positions, allowing them to live in their own mental bubble like the sphere Earth that we all escaped. Government, agencies and citizens alike have steady access to all the latest informational tools. Then solitary confinement. A society, including general population and public sector, with an uneven access to informational technology due to lack of net neutrality, uneven infrastructure, that isolates differently minded communities. UN Security Council, a technologically savvy, plugged-in society where diversity reigns, but difference and tolerance are socially valued, and where information flows freely across different groups. Oh, bless. And then Singapore. Well, Singapore, I thought it was Shangri-La. But whoever was writing this must have been suffering a bit of a headache. You know, that thing that Johns Hopkins don't know what the course is. Yeah, I forgot. And instead of looking, what am I writing? Shangri-La, they just wrote Singapore. Singapore. A melting pot society with peaceful coexistence of differently minded groups but uneven levels of access to informational technology. You see, this Singapore, it's supposed to be Shangri-La. See? These morons are the guys that sit in these Quango organisations in boardrooms going, wait, what if also this thing happened? Oh yeah, then what would happen? Well, let's look. Mathematically, well, this is the result. Really? This hasn't been edited by me. This is their PDF. This is their thing. Somebody read this and somebody wrote this, passed it on to someone else to read, to check. The person reading didn't even check, didn't even really bother checking. Shangri-La, Singapore, that's close enough, that'll do. You see, if they're inept at this, what other things are they inept at? Let's look for more interesting, colourful things. Colourful things. We're looking for, October, let's see. The timeline of events in the sparse pandemic scenario. Sorry, let me just find my lighter. Okay, October. The first US deaths occurred due to SPARS. Initially, these deaths were thought to have been caused by the flu. November. Cases of SPARS were reported across Minnesota and in 6 other states. But they must have thought that they were the flu too, because nobody checks to see whether or not it was the flu. Isn't that right, medical experts? When somebody dies of the flu in your hospital, you don't check to see if they died of the flu. You just say they died of the flu. But then later some other people die of the flu. They go, let's check these. Maybe it's not the flu. Maybe it's something that's identical to the flu, but it's not the flu. So, cases of SPARS were reported across Minnesota in 6 other states. Wait a second. How did they know there was this sparse if they don't check the flu deaths? Do you see what I'm getting at? Yeah, okay. Thanksgiving holiday travel and Black Friday shopping facilitate the spread of SPARS beyond the Midwest, 26 states and multiple other counties by mid-December. The World Health Organization declares the SPARS pandemic to be a public health emergency of international concern. What? The people had the flu in the US? Was for international concern? Oh, interesting. December. No treatment or vaccine for SPARS existed, but there was some evidence that the antiviral Calocivir could be effective as a therapeutic. Ooh, that's some hope. A proprietary vaccine developed and manufactured by a multinational livestock conglomerate was proposed as a potential foundation for a human vaccine. The vaccine was developed to combat an outbreak of a similar respiratory coronavirus in hoofed mammal populations in Southeast Asia. Could that be China? That region, but the vaccine had not been licensed by any regulatory authority or tested in humans. There were concerns over potential side effects. Then in January, the US government contracted SynBio to develop and produce a human SPARS vaccine based on the GMI animal vaccine. The HHS secretary invoked the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act to provide liability protection for the vaccine manufacturer and providers. Congress authorized and appropriated emergency funds under the PrEP Act to provide compensation for potential adverse side effects from the vaccine. Following reports of Calocivir's limited success in treating patients with severe SPARS infections, the FDA issued an emergency use authorization for the antiviral. Calocivir had been evaluated as a therapeutic for SARS and MERS, and several million doses were maintained in the SNS, which could be deployed as necessary while production capacity was established to meet demand. Now all we need is to drive demand up. If people don't want it, what are we going to do with it? We need money. The FDA, CDC and National Institute of Health provided seemingly conflicting communications regarding the safety and efficacy of Calocivir. That's interesting, isn't it? All of this was pre-planned. In the United States, public consent, remember, this was written 10 years before the 2023 to 25. So this was written, as they were putting this together as they were rolling out the coronavirus flu thing that we've just been through. Okay? In the United States, public anxiety about SPARS resulted in extensive use of Calocivir, frequent self-reporting of SPARS symptoms, and a surge in demand for medical care. By late January, SPARS was detected in 42 countries and all US states. What, the flu? February, a lack of cultural competency in FDA and other governmental communications became apparent among various ethnic groups in the United States. Oh, it's almost like exactly what happened. A video of a 3-year-old vomiting and fainting after taking a dose of Calocivir was widely and rapidly spread via social media, strengthening opposition to the EUA. So, I haven't seen the video, but this is part of what they were saying. Maybe this would happen. The UK Medicines and Healthcare Product Regulatory Agency and the European Medicines Agency jointly authorised the emergency use of a new antiviral, VMAX, in the United Kingdom and throughout the United. So basically, it's giving you a breakdown of what happened. Go and read it yourselves, folks. I'm not going to read it all. It's very interesting, but it is written by morons that miss things like, is Shangri-La Singapore? Or, hey, in If you don't know what causes a headache, what the fuck are you doing calling yourself a medical expert? Hey, maybe you should think about the nature of reality and then you'd understand how cancer coaxes capillaries to feed it. And that's your lot for today. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to chill. See you soon.